One of the most frustrating traits that any woman can have is the belief that every guy is hitting on her. Have you ever had that experience where you ask a woman for directions or something benign and her response is, "I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend," or "I'm not interested"? Or even worse, you're not even talking to a woman, you're just staring off into space, and then suddenly a woman walks into your field of vision and she sees you looking in her direction and she gets that disgusted face and goes, "Ugh," and walks off in a huff. As a guy, you feel like shit because you've just been rejected. What's worse is that you were not psychologically braced for rejection because you weren't hitting on her. Unfortunately, you have had an encounter with that terrible breed of woman who assumes that every guy is into her. Every guy just wants to get into her pants. She's so self-absorbed that she can't imagine any other possible motivation. She's just so hot, so amazing. Any guy would be so lucky to be able to speak to her, to spend time with her, that she doesn't need to consider, any other possibility for what your intentions might be, that you might actually just being polite or friendly, or you might genuinely need directions. No, you're hitting on her. She is so confident in her assumption that that's what's going on, that she rejects you the moment that you speak to her. Now, for my female audience members who've obviously never experienced this, and you might be thinking, is this really such a big deal? Try and imagine the gender equivalent, which would be something like a man walking up to you on the street, completely unprovoked and telling you that you're ugly. How would that feel? That out of the blue rejection when you're not even expecting it. It's hard to justify, right? Men don't do that to women though. And that's not because men are, psychologically above being dickheads. It's that they don't really have the sexual market value to be able to pull off that kind of preemptive rejection. In this culture though, women do. A woman can throw her drink in the face of a man who asks her if she was having a good night, and all of her friends can applaud and celebrate her like, yeah, you put that man in his place. That is the reality of the dating market in Western cultures. The two genders are having completely different experiences. Now, some guys want to provide excuses for these women when they do that. They want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You don't know how hard it is to be a woman. She's probably getting hit on all the time. She doesn't want to lead men on, whatever it is. I don't think that's what's going on, at least in the majority of cases. I have a much darker explanation. I think that some women enjoy rejecting men. I think they like the power. That rush, that feeling that comes from telling a man, no, I'm better than you, I'm above you, and you deserve to be punished for believing that you had a chance with me. For a lot of women, it is a powerful ego trip to tell a man that she's not interested in him. The degree to which he is crushed, saddened, and diminished is the same degree to which she is thrilled, exhilarated, elevated. But gentlemen, know this. When she thinks that you're staring at her and she gives that outraged huff, like, "Oh, isn't it so disgusting that this man is staring at me?" That is an act. If she was genuinely unnerved at you looking at her, she would be reserved, frightened even. All of that pouting, that faux outrage, that is a performance that she puts on for your benefit. She is acting disgusted because she wants you to feel disgusting. She might look displeased on the outside, but she's happy on the inside. She's happy at the chance to elevate and boost herself at your expense. Now, I'm not talking about most women, definitely not. Most women don't like rejecting guys because the feminine is scared of conflict. It sucks for them. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. It makes them feel guilty. For this behavior, I'm talking about a very specific type of woman, a woman with very dark psychology, possibly a personality disorder. This is your classic low-quality woman. A woman who enjoys rejecting men so much, enjoys that rush and thrill of power so much that she rejects guys even when they're not hitting on her. When she sees a man looking at her from a distance or some guy comes to speak to her, her first thought is, how can I use this situation to elevate myself? She wants to use you as a prop to deliver that boost of self-esteem. And I know that that is messed up and it's not fun to think about. It's really unpleasant to contemplate the mindset of somebody who thinks like this. But I'm hammering this point home because I don't want you to feel, if you ever have to experience one of these preemptive rejections, I don't want you to feel as though you have done something wrong. That's her intention though. She wants you to feel as though you have committed some kind of awful sin and that she is righteously casting judgment upon you. That is not what is going on though. Her reaction says everything about her and nothing about you. do not feel guilty. If you do, then you just play right into her hands and she has successfully diminished you. And I mean diminished quite literally, feeling depressed, like you're sinking, that you are smaller than you were before this interaction. You know that part of your brain that tracks where you sit in the social hierarchy? When Jordan Peterson is talking about like the lobsters and the serotonin, that mechanism shifts every time a rejection takes place, for the man and for the woman. For the man who asked for directions only to be told that she has a boyfriend or whatever, that rejection means that he goes down. For the woman who has rejected him, she goes up because she's successfully, communicated that she's above him, that she's not interested in him. This is very real. And if you just let this happen, then this rejection could cause a permanent shift in your own perception of your own value. We are social creatures, and we have evolved strong mechanisms in our brain to track social feedback and internalize the opinions of other people. We cannot let that happen in any circumstances. We cannot let some low-quality woman dictate our feelings of self-worth or our self-esteem. You must address this. And so the question becomes, well, how do you respond? How do you deal with it when you experience this kind of preemptive rejection? The rule is that you have to respond with equal strength to the strength of her rejection. If she rejected you this hard, then you come back at her with this amount of strength. And if she rejected you this hard, then you come back with this strength. Let's give some examples. Let's say you ask a woman for directions, and in response, she sort of recoils in her body and gives a sign before answering. It's a rejection, no doubt, but it's pretty soft, so you can't come back at her too strong. You can't be like, "What's your problem, bitch? You ain't hot." You're not settling any score if you respond like that. You're just some, freak who can't read what is socially appropriate. You've responded with way too much force. So if you experience a soft rejection, then just give her a puzzled look and then say, "Okay," or respond with like a monotone "thanks" and then walk away. It's designed to communicate that her response to you was weird, and that this frame that she cast you in as some, desperate, thirsty guy who's trying to get in her pants was foolish, and she's a fool to have made that assumption. It's really important that you break rapport and you communicate in some fashion that the way that she responded to you was not appropriate. That way, when you're walking away from the interaction, she is the one who feels diminished. She is the one who can't properly read social cues or judge a situation accurately. You, on the other hand, leave the interaction elevated because you're somebody who does know what's appropriate and you are just being polite. Remember, this isn't about punishing a woman. It's about addressing an imbalance that she created. Yes, she's going to feel diminished by your actions, but don't feel bad. Remember, she fired the first shot. You're just acting in self-defense. Now, what if it's a medium rejection? Let's say you ask her where the closest coffee shop is, and her response is, "I have a boyfriend." In that case, you need to be stronger. Say something like, "Don't flatter yourself. I'm not hitting on you. Do you know where the coffee shop is?" Saying that will definitely clear things up. And by repeating your original request, it clarifies what the actual intention of the interaction was and reinforces how bad she was at reading, what was socially going on here. Now, let's say her rejection is really strong. If you say something like, "Oh, excuse me, miss," and she's like, "I'm not interested. Keep it in your pants." This is how I would respond. "You thought I was hitting on you? Gross. Don't feel bad. She started it. You are just defending yourself." I know it feels terrible and it goes against your masculinity, which is designed to protect women and to be nice to them, to actually, be causing some kind of pain or suffering here. But I don't want to see men be victims of their own virtues. If she comes at you strongly, you need to defend yourself. Okay, but now here's an interesting situation. What if you're rejected preemptively by a girl, but she does it in a really sweet and kind sort of way? You ask her where the coffee shop is, and she says, "Oh, wow, you're so sweet, thank you, but I actually have a boyfriend, sorry." Even though she's sort of being kind about it, at least on the surface, it's still an unjustified rejection, and so you need to respond. Otherwise you're going to walk away from that interaction feeling diminished. So you respond to her, but you are kind in the way that you do it. That's how she came at you, so that's how you respond. You say, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to embarrass you, but you have really misread this situation. I'm not hitting on you. That's not what's going on here." You establish your own frame where you're not embarrassed about being preemptively rejected by her. She's the one who should feel embarrassed because she's misread this social situation, but you're so kind and generous that you're going to, excuse that. Now, if she's a decent girl, then she's going to recognize the mistake that she made in her assumption and quickly apologize. Or she'll get aggressive and you'll quickly find out that the sweetness and the kindness, it was just an act, and she's pissed at you for not falling into the role that she cast you in. Now, all of this gets a lot harder if you are preemptively rejected by a girl that you're not even in a conversation with. Like, imagine you're on a train or a bus and you sit down next to a woman and she gets up and makes a big performance about moving, to another seat to punish you as though you were so desperate for her physical proximity. That one sucks, but unfortunately you're kind of stuck with that because any response to that is going to seem out of proportion. If you make a point of going up to her and, starting a conflict, telling her that her behavior was inappropriate or whatever, you're just going to seem weird. Because she never actually spoke to you, for you to initiate that conversation is an unjustifiably strong reaction. So you just have to take that one on the chin, practice stoicism. Just remind yourself that you don't care about the opinions of some low quality woman, who cares what frame she cast you in? That's not going to define you. But while strangers like that are out of your control and somewhat unavoidable, when it comes to women that you should be taking preventative action. That way, you never find yourself in this kind of situation. So, for example, if there's some woman at your work who is really self-absorbed and always thinks that every guy who speaks to her is hitting on her, then make a policy of not speaking to her, of not looking at her, never interacting with her. Why give her any ammunition? Save your conversation and your goodwill for high-quality people who deserve your presence. Make it a policy of avoiding all low-quality people, because the reality of avoiding danger is that it's so much more about prevention than reaction. So be smart and protect yourself. After all, the only reason that these low-quality women are able to continue to boost themselves at the expense of men is because men willingly fall into the frame that is cast for them. They allow themselves to feel guilty. Just because a woman has a negative reaction to you does not automatically mean that you did something wrong. Stop feeling guilty. Your guilt is their food source. And I personally want to collectively starve all of the low quality women so that their egos shrink to the point where they're no longer such a danger to society. If your intentions were pure, then you have nothing to feel guilty about. Stand up for yourself with a completely clean conscience. I received this email from one of the women who watches my channel detailing her relationship, and it's one of the most dysfunctional I've ever heard of. She made some terrible mistakes early on in the relationship, but then the way he broke up with her and tried to get back together with her, and the way he's perpetually making her feel guilty and how her emotions are mixed up in it, it's an absolute roller coaster. It's incredible what's actually occurred here. I'll copy and paste her entire email in the pinned comment down below so you can check it out for yourself. Anyway, I made a video about their relationship. It's a long one. It's like half an hour long, but it just takes that amount of time to unpack all of the bizarreness and actually find a path through all of this. So we go into heaps of different topics. Tremendous video. I think you'll find it really entertaining. I put it on my Patreon. That's where I put the content that doesn't have such a widespread general appeal. It's a little bit more specific and nuanced, but for people who really want the nitty and gritty about relationships, that's what you find on my Patreon. It's just $5 a month. Please go and sign up. I'd love to see you over there.